You are standing in an elevator. The doors slide open. A stranger steps in. You do not know their name. You do not know a single fact about their life. And yet, before they have said one word, your brain has already decided something about them. Are they safe? Are they trustworthy? Are they someone you would help or someone you would avoid? This happens in a tenth of a second, faster than conscious thought, faster than you can explain why. Your ancestors did not have Wi-Fi or resumes or background checks. They had faces, and somehow that was enough to build entire societies on. So why does a total stranger's face carry so much weight? Why do you trust some faces instantly and flinch from others without knowing why? The answer starts nearly 200,000 years ago on the plains of East Africa. Back then, your ancestors lived in small bands, maybe 30 people, sometimes fewer. Every face they saw belonged to someone they had known for years, often for their entire life. There were no strangers, not really. If a new face did appear, it usually meant one of two things: a potential ally or a potential threat. There was no time to run a background check. There was no village elder database. There was only the face and a few seconds to decide. The humans who read faces quickly and mostly correctly survived. The ones who trusted the wrong face or feared the right one did not always get a second chance. This is where psychologist Alexander Todorov's research becomes so revealing. Todorov at Princeton spent years studying how people judge trustworthiness from faces alone. In his experiments, he showed participants images of unfamiliar faces for just a fraction of a second, sometimes as little as 100 milliseconds. That is faster than a single blink. And still, people formed confident judgments: trustworthy, competent, aggressive, warm, cold. The verdicts came instantly and barely changed, even when participants were given more time to look. Your brain, it turns out, is not deliberating when it meets a stranger. It is retrieving an ancient shortcut. Todorov's work found that certain facial features consistently trigger trust. Slightly raised eyebrows, a rounder jaw, eyes that appear wide rather than narrow. These are not random preferences. They echo the facial expressions of surprise and warmth, the kind of open, non-threatening expression your ancestors associated with someone who meant no harm. Meanwhile, faces with lowered brows, narrowed eyes, or downturned mouths trigger the opposite, not because the person is actually dangerous, but because those features resemble anger, and on the Savanna, anger aimed at you was a signal to act immediately. Here is the strange part. None of this has anything to do with whether the person is actually trustworthy. Todorov's studies found almost no correlation between how trustworthy someone's face looks and how trustworthy they actually behave. Your brain is not reading the truth. It is reading a resemblance to an ancient emotional signal and treating that resemblance as fact. You are not judging the stranger in the elevator. You are judging how closely their resting face resembles an emotion your ancestors needed to detect in half a second 30,000 generations ago. But faces are only part of the story. Your brain does something even faster than facial judgment. It makes what psychologists call a thin slice. Psychologist Nalini Ambady, working first at Harvard and later at Tufts, ran a series of studies that became famous for a simple, almost unsettling reason. She showed people extremely short video clips, sometimes only 2 seconds long, of teachers they had never met. No sound, just body language and expression. Then she asked viewers to rate the teacher's competence. The ratings from those 2-second silent clips closely matched the evaluations that students gave after an entire semester in that teacher's class. 2 seconds An entire semester, nearly the same verdict. Ambadi called this thin slicing, the idea that your brain can extract a startling amount of accurate information from a very small window of behavior. Not because you are being careless, because this is precisely the tool your brain evolved to use. Think about what that tool was for. In a small ancestral band, you rarely had the luxury of watching someone for a semester before deciding whether to trust them with your child, your food, or your safety. You had a glance, a tone of voice, the set of their shoulders, and you had to decide right then whether this person belonged. That pressure shaped a brain built for fast, thin-sliced judgment, not slow, careful analysis, which raises a bigger question. If your ancestors evolved to instantly judge people within their own small group, why does this system still fire so confidently when you meet a stranger who shares nothing with your ancestral tribe at all? This is where anthropologist Robin Dunbar's research becomes essential. Dunbar, at Oxford, spent decades studying the size of human social groups, both ancient and modern. His research proposed what is now called Dunbar's number, the idea that the human brain can only maintain stable, meaningful relationships with roughly 150 people at a time. 150, not thousands, not millions. 150. That number is not arbitrary. Dunbar linked it to the size of the neocortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex social reasoning. Across primate species, brain structure predicts group size remarkably well. Bigger social brain, larger stable group. Humans, with our especially large neocortex, land at around 150. For nearly the entire span of human history, that number was your entire world. 150 faces, 150 relationships to track, remember, and judge. Everyone outside that number was, functionally, a stranger. Now think about your life today. You pass hundreds of unfamiliar faces on a single commute. You scroll past thousands more in a single evening online. Every single one triggers the same ancient facial judgment system that Todorov measured in his lab. Every single one gets thin-sliced in under 2 seconds, the same way Ambadi's teachers were. Your brain was never built for this volume. It was built for a village. Now it is running village-sized software on a species of 8 billion. This is not a flaw. It is a mismatch. Your instant trust reactions are not malfunctioning. They are functioning exactly as they were designed to, just in an environment the designers never imagined. There is a modern name for the discomfort this creates. Some researchers call it social overload. Your nervous system produces a small stress response every time it evaluates an unfamiliar face, even if you never consciously notice it. Multiply that by every stranger you pass in a single day, and you begin to understand why crowded cities can feel exhausting in a way that has nothing to do with physical effort. Your ancestors were never meant to judge this many faces in a single lifetime, let alone a single afternoon. And yet, the system still works, in its own way. Consider how quickly you decide whether to trust a stranger who offers you directions or a new coworker on their first day. Consider how a single photograph on a dating profile or a 2-second video clip online can shape your entire impression of someone you have never spoken to. That is Todorov's split-second face read. That is Ambadi's thin slice. Still running, still fast, still ancient. The next time a stranger walks into the room and some quiet part of you decides instantly whether to relax or stay alert, you are not overreacting. You are not being irrational. You are running code written by ancestors who did not have the luxury of being wrong twice. Your brain is not judging the stranger in front of you. It is still in some quiet corner, standing on a savanna 200,000 years ago, deciding in a tenth of a second whether the face in front of you means safety or means run. And somehow, that same tenth of a second is still deciding it for you every single time the elevator doors slide open.